Hello and welcome to livealittlehigher.com. This week we read Parashat Vayeishev, and Parashat Vayeishev begins and Jacob settled. And this is a parasha in which you would think, okay, he already went through everything in his life. He fled his home because his brother was going to kill him. He came to marry his wives, and the father-in-law, Lavan, tricked him into marrying the wrong wife. He had to work 7 years for Rachel. Then he married Leah. Then he had to work another 7 years to marry Rachel, and so on. And he was always tricked and always fleeing from people that had wanted to hurt him. So he comes and he settles finally in the land of Canaan, in today's modern Israel. And he thinks he's settled. He thinks, okay, I'm at an old age. I've done everything I've wanted. Thank God, Baruch Hashem, have money. I have a beautiful family, have good children. I have accomplished a lot in my life, and this is a time for me to go and retire and just enjoy life. But Hashem had different plans for him. And in this parasha and the next parashas, we're going to see how his beloved son, Joseph, is sold into slavery. He goes to Egypt and he thinks he died. And it comes to be the hardest years of his life. And there's something very interesting that happens in this parasha that is juxtaposed. It's put right parallel to this exile of Joseph into Egypt. At the same time, his brother Yehuda, who was the one that sold Joseph into slavery, he leaves the home of his father and he goes and he settles in a different place, and he marries a woman and he starts his own family. And we see that he fathers his first son, and then he fathers Onan, and then he fathers Shelah. So amongst the numerous births that are recounted in these Torah portions of the book of Bereshit, two of the births are sets of twins. We know about the first twins. The first Jewish twins were Esav and Yaakov, were the first children born to Isaac. And we here in this parasha, we see that there's a very mysterious episode that happens. It's like a soap opera. And this Yaakov, when Yehuda, his son, he's the fourth son of Leah. He comes to this place and he marries his wife and he fathers these three children. The firstborn child marries a beautiful woman. Her name is Tamar. And Tamar is married to and sadly, doesn't want to have children with her. He throws away his seed. And because of this is a sin of the Torah. Men cannot be throwing away their seed. They have to really use it for what it is, which is for procreation. Because of this sin, dies at a young age. And then there's a concept in the Torah that it's called a levirate marriage, in which if a woman marries a man and this man leaves the world with no children, childless, and he has a brother, consensually, if she concedes, she marries the second brother, and through him, she will bring back the life of her deceased first husband. But what happens here is that she marries Onan, the second son in this marriage, who also dies for the same reason. He doesn't want to have children with her because she's so beautiful and he doesn't want to spoil her beauty. And he dies childless. So Yehuda sends her away and he tells her, okay, you're gonna marry the youngest son, Shelah, and I'll send you when this boy is ready for marriage. I'll send for you and you'll marry him, and then you'll be able to bring progeny through him. So what happens? The years go by. Yehuda becomes a widow. He loses his wife. He never sends for Tamar because he's scared. This is she's gonna marry him, the same thing is gonna happen, and she never sends for her, but she's promised for him in matrimony. So what happens is that Tamar was a prophetess of her time, and she could see that through her the seed of Messiah was going to be planted through her union with the house of Yehuda. So what happens? She disguises as a harlot. In these days, harlots didn't look like they look today. She dressed in black and she covered her face. Nobody knew who she was, and she sat at a crossroads, and she knew that Yehuda was supposed to pass through this crossroads. He was a judge, a very dignified person. And at that moment, he was a widow. He saw her and he hired her. And eventually, they did what they did. And when he was going to pay her, he didn't have any money to pay her with. So he left with her his ring and his signet. And he said that he would send somebody with the money. Well, money was not in those days, or whatever they paid, like chickens or eggs or whatever that they paid with. And he was going to send the payment. And that he would retrieve his belongings. So what happens is that he sent someone, but she was nowhere to be found. Nobody could find her, and he never found her. So the story continues that a few months later, someone comes up to him, to Yehuda, and he says that his daughter-in-law is an adulteress because she's been having a relationship with someone that is not his son, and that she's pregnant, and that actually in the Torah is a very grave sin, adultery, when a woman that is married or promised to somebody has relationships with someone that is not this person. It's very grave. And so actually in the times of the Torah, this was a death penalty. So he sends for her, and when she comes, she doesn't want to humiliate her. Here we see how the greatness that this woman held. And she went up, she sent to him his signet and his ring, and she said, tell him this belongs to the person that is the father of this child. Okay, so he knows at that moment it's him. He realizes, he goes, talks to her, he sees, she says by prophecy, we're meant to have children, you're meant to have children through me, either through your children or me, but the seed of Messiah is gonna come through this union. So from here comes Peretz, and from Peretz comes Boaz, and Boaz, we know he married Ruth, who was a Moabite princess that converted to Judaism, and from there they were the great-grandparents of King David, and from there we can see the lineage of Messiah. So what happened here, and what we're talking about from the teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, is that he makes a comparison between these two pregnancies, the one of Rivka and Yitzhak, that they had these two twins, and the pregnancy of Tamar, where she had also these two twins, who were called Peretz and Serach. So we see that regarding these pregnancies, we see that Rivka's pregnancy was fulfilled. It says that she gave birth at 9 months. It was a full pregnancy, and it was a pregnancy that came from a union of a husband and a wife. Everything looked perfect for perfect children. Like you see, like there's no wrong here. Like they're married, they prayed for their children, she got pregnant, she had them at 9 months, she had these two babies. So everything is done in a proper way. Regarding Tamar and Yehuda, we see that the time that she gave birth was not a perfect time. She had them when she was in her 7 months of pregnancy. It was not a full pregnancy. And also, her union with Yehuda was not the most clean union, like it wasn't that perfect. They were not married. She was a daughter-in-law. Like you would say, this is evil, right? So we see that from the pregnancy of Rivka, which everything should have been okay, comes these descendants, Yaakov, which is a righteous person, and Esav, which is an evil person. And we see that from the union of Yehuda and Tamar, we see that that although the union was not the best union, it was very questionable. Nevertheless, her progeny were perfect tzaddikim. They were perfect in the way that they behaved in life. So another point here is that we see that at the moment that Joseph is being incarcerated in Egypt, he's going into exile to the deepest of the deepest. This whole thing is unfolding on another place in the world, geographically. But what it's teaching us is that really when the world goes down, Hashem is already bringing the salvation. So here, according to the Rebbe Lubavitch, the whole thing that we're trying to understand here is where does evil come from? Why evil is part of this existence of this world? And we see that Rebecca indeed had a perfect pregnancy. And the Midrash seems to imply that the wicked half of her progeny was already asserting his evil nature while still in the womb. Although the Midrash states in the Torah that the children struggled within her, and we know the story that she went to the house of Shem and Ever because she had such a difficult pregnancy that the baby was moving, kicking when she passed through a house of idol worship, and then the baby would go crazy again when she passed through in front of the yeshiva. And so she was told to her by prophecy that she didn't have one baby, she had two babies, and two babies, one was evil, was going to be evil, and the other one was going to be righteous, and that these two babies were going to always fight for the city, which is the body, and when one rises, the other one falls, and when the other one rises, the other one falls, that not the two of them can be on the top at the same time. And this has been an ongoing struggle for humanity ever since, between Esav, which represents the Roman Empire, and Yaakov, which represents the Jewish people. But here we also have it within us. We have the godly soul and the animal soul. And inside of our bodies, we also have this struggle of good and evil. So, but however, in the Midrashic accounts, it also describes Esav and Jacob when they were children, how they grew up in a beautiful environment, in a beautiful Jewish home with good values. Their grandfather Abraham lived with them and he shared with them. And it says that Esav, when he was a child, he was a normal child. But then when he grew up, that's when he decided he didn't want to be a good person. And so here we see that the choice between evil and good, it's really the free choice that every human being possesses. Like everybody can choose between being good or evil. It doesn't matter your characteristics, your makeup, your personality, nothing, where you were brought up, how you were brought up. You can justify everything, but at the end of the day, we all have the choice to act in a righteous way or not in a righteous way. So we see here that Esav did choose to follow the path of evil, was a person that grew up with the best examples, role models in his life, and nevertheless he chose the other side. And so we see that there's a similar contradiction that is also found in the remarks regarding God's creation of the world. On the one hand, we have the Midrashic statement that the world was created fulfilled, fully matured and lacking nothing. Hashem didn't create a young world, He didn't create babies. He created adult human beings. He created adult animals. He created the vegetation was already, trees were already up. So we see that the perfect world which God created contains the potential for imperfection, even evil. And in this potential is an integral part of its perfection. And this is very interesting because the Midrash citing the verse, and God looked upon all that he made, and behold, it was very good. He comments, behold, it was very good. And this is the good inclination. And behold, it was very good. This is the inclination of evil. So behold, it was very good. This is good fortune. And behold, it was very good. This is also suffering. And behold, it was very good. This is paradise. And behold, it was very good. This is hell. And behold, it was very good. This is the angel of life. And behold, this was very good, is the angel of death. So we see that good and evil are really a paradox. Like, something can be good and at the same time it can be evil. A good medicine that is good to treat a person because he has a certain ailment and it's the perfect medicine for him and it's gonna cure him, it's good. But if a person that doesn't have that ailment starts taking this medicine, then for him it's gonna be evil. So there's a fundamental principle of the Jewish faith that it's written by Maimonides, and it's that the freedom of choice has been granted to every man. Every person can choose. And if he desires to turn himself to a path of good and be a righteous person, the option is in his hands. And if he desires to turn himself to a path of evil and be a wicked person, the path is in his hands. Yet we observe that there's certain people that are more susceptible to wickedness than others. We see that there's now this movie trending, Wicked. You know, everybody's talking about Wicked and how this witch of the story of Wizard of Oz, why she became wicked. And yes, you can justify wickedness. A person can be bullied all his life in school, be mistreated, come to a house where there's no love, where they don't treat him well. He can become the worst person in the world. Or you can have a person that goes through these same things and they can become exceptional human beings that are fighting against injustice and are trying to be kind to other people. You can see both sides of the story. So the Talmud describes the prototypical victim of evil, and this was Job. Job, we know there's a whole book of Job, who was protesting to God, Master of the universe, you have created righteous people and you have created wicked people. And we see that in the Tanya, Rabbi Shneur Salman of Liadi, in the first chapter of the Tanya, and this week is the Yud Tet Kislev, is on Thursday night and Friday, it's the anniversary of his release from being incarcerated. And because of this, thank God, today we have all his teachings and we can teach all these very profound subjects that 300 years ago were impossible to understand. Today I can give you all these subjects in a way that are very much intellectually fitting to be understood. So the Alter Rebbe exclaims that God indeed created righteous people and evil people, wicked people. And we know that the righteous people are actually the tzaddikim. These are holy people. They're pious people. They're not the majority of humanity. There are certain individuals that are handpicked by God. It says in the Torah that there's actually 36 of them in the Jewish world that sustain the world. Some are hidden and some are revealed. And these people are, by nature, they abhor evil. They hate it. They won't do anything that goes against Hashem. They can't do it. And it's not because they decided to be this way. They're just made up to be this way. And we see it's either because they have been born to be a tzaddik, or it can be a person that has worked so hard his whole life to go against whatever God doesn't want from him, that he's able to transform his soul and transform all the wickedness that he holds and transform it into good. So, but then you have the regular individuals who are destined not to be wicked in actuality, that Hashem made them with wickedness, with wicked, let's say, predispositions, jealousy, anger, you call it bad feelings towards judgmental, people that are stingy, that these are character traits, midot, that are not good character traits. They're not good nothing good is gonna come out of them. right? But the person has a choice either to act on them or to say, you know what, maybe yes, maybe I'm a very judgmental human being. I have to learn not to be judgmental. I have to start learning about loving everybody, about having a Havat Israel, about not judging people by looking at people with mercy, with a good and kind eye. And people can work on themselves continuously to not fall into the wicked characteristic. So God forbid, but that the doings of the wicked should approach them in their minds and thoughts alone, so that they must constantly battle to avert their minds from them as suppress the evil, for they would not be able to annihilate it completely, as can be achieved only by righteous. So we regular human beings will never, very hard to become a tzaddik and be able to transform the bad characteristics that plague us into goodness. But we have the ability to fight them continuously. This is a battle. It's an ongoing battle. A person that is continuously, that is aware of his fallings, and he's always aware of them, and he's always on top of these feelings, and he's constantly working towards doing the right thing, always in action. This is a person that becomes an intermediate person, because yes, inside he has the battle, inside he has the wickedness. It's never gonna go away, but when he behaves in action, he's always gonna act like a tzaddik. So for God desires both these types of human beings in his world. Just like in the physical foods, for example, there exist two types of delicacies. You have sweet and sour, sweet and luscious foods, and sharp and sour foods, which have been spiced and garnished, and people love them. You love sweet, you love a good chocolate cake, and people are also nowadays, everything spicy. People are loving spicy food. So these are called delicacies, which gratify the soul. So too, there are two kinds of gratification before God. One comes from the complete annihilation of evil, when a person is able to become completely turn around to the other side, and he despises anything that is bad in the eyes of Hashem. And the second one is when the evil is subdued while it is still at its strongest and most powerful, and through the force of the intermediate man. So this one really, it's called that's the person that struggles. This is a Yaakov. A Yaakov is a person that his whole life is struggling. Once he conquers, because in the behavior, he doesn't behave as an evil person, he behaves like a righteous person, then it's changed to Israel. The name Israel denotes conquered, victory. So this is a deeper significance of these two nations that are within Rebecca, Rivka, that were dwelling in her womb. And the gravitation to evil exhibited by one of the twins was not a deficiency, it was the potential for the second delicacy that is craved by God. So this is something monumental. Whenever you're struggling with your deficiency, in parentheses I call it, because it's really not a deficiency, and this is something very important to teach your children, that when they struggle with an evil inclinations, things that are not, don't make them see themselves good in their own eyes, don't call it a deficiency, call it a potential. Tell your kids, you're not deficient, you have potential. And this is the way in which we transform ourselves, both internally and externally. Because when you see that a person, for example, struggles with his anger management, let's call it anger management today, people that suffer from anger, people would see it, okay, that person has a deficiency, but in reality, they have the greatest potential. Everything that is a stumbling block in front of you, is a stepping stone to go higher. This is something that is very important to understand. So we see that Yaakov and Esav constituted a full pregnancy containing both the two fundamental potentials that God implanted in his creation, the delight of utter goodness and the distinct pleasure and sense of achievement that comes only from someone that is struggling. So Tamar's pregnancy, on the other hand, and the delivery describe the reverse process, how negative circumstances and actions can be subliminated so that the original perfection from which every potential in existence stems is restored. Indeed, when the potential for evil, suffering, hell, death becomes an actuality, the opportunity exists for an even deeper perfection to be achieved. And when these are vanquished and transformed into good. So this is the whole purpose of our existence. This is why this world is not what it seems. Sometimes you see a relationship that looks terrible, that how can this happen? And in reality, the biggest potential is coming out from this relationship. And the other way around, when something looks so perfect, in reality can also be something that it's gonna evolve into something that is not so good. So I wanna leave you here. I wanna wish you a blessed week, and remember, live a little higher. Thank you.